when I kicked down my own gate, with the fire chief screaming into my earpiece and 3,000 people one pipe away from a water crisis. All I could think about was the smug little lock Karen had placed there and how she was about to make the news for committing the dumbest felony in HOA history. If you're wondering, wait, what? How is that even possible? How does someone not notice that? Believe me, I've been asking myself the same question ever since. I've handled disasters in my career: pipeline bursts, infrastructure sabotage, even a teenager who crashed a grid trying to mine Bitcoin with a toaster. But nothing, absolutely nothing prepared me for a middle-aged woman with a chain, a clipboard, and a pastel capri pantsuit with a god complex. My name's Eli. I'm a civil engineer by trade, a county infrastructure manager by unfortunate promotion, and a reluctant resident of Maple Heights, the quaintest little prison on earth. You've probably seen neighborhoods like this: cookie-cutter houses, manicured lawns cut to regulation height, mailboxes matching like they belong to a suburban cult. On the surface, it's peaceful, but peel back one layer, and it's Stepford wives meets mall cops who failed upward. At the top of this overly regulated pyramid was Karen, vice president of the HOA and self-appointed guardian of residential purity. She was a menace in kitten heels. To be fair, I wasn't even on her radar at first. I kept my yard tidy, paid dues on time, nodded politely during her 6 a.m. patrol walks. But I made one fatal error. I built a rustic wooden side gate. Handcrafted, reinforced, stained to match my house site, looked great and worked even better. But it didn't come with a formal architectural submission to the HOA board. That was all Karen needed. First came the notes, not friendly ones, but printed excerpts of the HOA handbook with highlights around unauthorized modification and visual deviation. I ignored them, assuming she'd move on to someone else's flower pots. I underestimated her. She escalated to a formal complaint, claiming my gate obstructed community access and posed a safety hazard. That's rich coming from someone who parked her golf cart diagonally across the sidewalk every Tuesday. I emailed her politely to explain that the gate covered the emergency infrastructure access point buried in my yard. A critical water pipe. Mind you, if it failed, the entire town's pressure would reroute through my property. Her response? Bureaucratic HOA gobbledygook about reviewing the easement documents. Then one day, I came home and found a chain. A thick, shiny padlock chain wrapped around my gate. Not mine, hers. There was even a laminated sign zip-tied to the fence post. HOA access only. Unauthorized entry prohibited. She acted like she was guarding Area 51. I knocked on her door. She smiled like a shark and said, "Just maintaining neighborhood order." I told her, again, that she'd blocked essential county infrastructure. She laughed. If that were true, someone would have told the HOA. I'm a someone, I said. I could have cut the chain right then, but some irrational part of me wanted to see how far she'd go. So I documented everything: photos, emails, even her ridiculous sign. I waited, and then the storm hit. Not rain, not wind up, burst water main upstream. Grid pressure dropped, and we needed to reroute flow through the backup line buried under my yard, the one behind the chain gate. I got the alert at 6:42 a.m. Emergency crews were inbound. I was still buttoning my shirt when the fire truck pulled up. Karen was already there, yelling about trespassing. Uniformed responders tried to explain it was an emergency. She argued with them like gravity was optional. I grabbed my sledgehammer, marched past her, and said what I'd been holding in for months. "Karen, I warned you. Now watch what happens." I kicked the gate. The chain snapped. The gate slammed open. We accessed the bypass valve and stabilized pressure in under 5 minutes. Crisis averted. Karen? She screamed about property damage while firefighters ignored her like she was background noise. Then came the real twist. The fire chief radioed me. "Eli, we have a legal complication." Karen called the sheriff. She's claiming we broke into her easement. Her easement? Turns out Karen had filed a land use modification with the HOA. Unbeknownst to the county, the HOA had rubber-stamped her claim. On paper, it looked like she had authority. By the time the sheriff arrived, Karen was in full courtroom cosplay, waving documents, shouting about unlawful entry, and accusing me of aggressive behavior. I calmly explained the situation, pointed out the bypass valve, handed over the original easement stamped 5 years ago. The sheriff took one look at everything and said, "I think I'll leave this to county attorneys." Karen's face turned every shade of red imaginable. She stormed off, ranting about lawsuits. But the seed was planted. The county launched an investigation. Meetings happened. Legal teams got involved. Someone from the state infrastructure board showed up. Everyone wanted to know how a local HOA interfered with emergency responders. I laid it all out at gate, the chain, the emails, the ignored warnings. Karen went on the defensive. She posted rants online, accused me of staging the crisis, claimed I was intimidating her with my position. She even said I fabricated the pipe burst. Then she called an emergency HOA meeting. The agenda? Censuring me. I showed up with the county water commissioner, a fire marshal, and 2 reporters. Karen had a slideshow, photos, dramatic music. She didn't get past slide 2. The fire marshal stood up and said, "Karen delayed a time-sensitive emergency response." The water commissioner followed. Her unauthorized chain breached county protocols. Dead silence. A board member named Rick slowly scooted his chair away from Karen. A reporter asked, "Karen, were you aware you were blocking emergency infrastructure?" Karen stammered, "Well, no one told me." She stormed out. The motion to censure me died. Instead, the board froze all HOA enforcement actions pending review. Then came the audit. Turns out Karen had filed unauthorized fines, backdated documents, even funneled HOA funds to her cousin's landscaping company. The county's liability insurance refused coverage, citing obstruction of emergency services. The HO and Karen were on the hook. Neighbors started texting me. People who'd avoided me now wanted me to run for the board. I declined. I wasn't interested in politics. I just wanted to fix pipes and be left alone. But Karen had crossed a line. The county drafted a cease and desist. They considered personal charges. The hearing would be public. Karen, naturally, countered with a lawsuit. She claimed emotional distress, property damage, and defamation. The letter was typed in Comic Sans. The court laughed it out. The final blow came when investigators uncovered a forged $9,000 maintenance invoice for work that never happened. The vendor? Her nephew. Fraud charges followed. Karen quietly sold her house and vanished. No advice, just an empty mailbox and no clipboard. With her gone, Maple Heights began to heal. HOA meetings became productive. Neighbors reconnected. Kids played outside again. I fixed my gate, replaced the hinge, added a plaque. On this spot, a very dumb lock almost shut down a town, in memory of poor decisions. People loved it. A month later, I got a letter from her new neighbor. Karen had moved to a nearby town, using a new name, claimed the whole saga was fake news. I wrote back, "Good luck. Keep your gate unlocked." Karen was a force of chaos disguised as civic duty. She didn't understand infrastructure or logic, but she wielded power like a sword. And when people stopped obeying, she burned everything trying to prove she was right. If she had left my gate alone, she'd still be here, reigning over patio furniture. Instead, she became a cautionary tale. And me? I'm still here, same gate, same job. But every time I walk past that latch, I smile. Because that gated absurd chain became more than a story. It became a monument to poetic justice. A reminder that the truth always snaps back. Just like that chain.